For over 100 years, archaeologists have searched Jerusalem for evidence of the Kingdom of David. But excavating here is contentious, because Jerusalem is sacred to today's three monotheistic religions.
For Christians, Jesus comes in his final week to worship at the Jerusalem temple. He's crucified, he's buried, he's resurrected in the city of Jerusalem. For Islam, it is the site where Muhammad comes in a sacred night journey. And today, the Dome of the Rock marks that spot. In Judaism, the stories of the Hebrew Bible, of Solomon, of David, of the temples of Jerusalem, all of these take place, of course, in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is a symbol of sacred space today, important for all three traditions.
Despite the difficulties, Israeli archaeologist Eilat Mazar went digging in the most ancient part of Jerusalem, today called the City of David.
We started excavations here because we wanted to check and to examine the possibility that the remains of King David's palace are here.
But because this area has been fought over, destroyed, and rebuilt over thousands of years, it was a long shot that any biblical remains would survive. But then,
large walls started to appear, 3 meter wide, 5 meter wide, and then we saw that it goes all directions. It goes from east, 30 meters to the west, and we don't see the end of it yet.
Such huge walls can only be part of a massive building. And Mazar believes her excavations to date represent only 20% of its total size.
Such a huge structure shows centralization and capability of construction. It can be only royal structure.
This huge complex may be evidence of a kingdom. But is it David's kingdom? For these walls to be David's palace, it would have to date to his lifetime, around 1000 BC. The problem is stone walls can never be dated on their own. Biblical archaeologists date ruins based on the pottery they find associated with those ruins. Pottery dating is based on two ideas. Pottery styles evolve uniformly over time. And the further down you dig, the further back in time you go. If pottery style A comes from the lowest stratum, then it is earlier than pottery style B that comes from the stratum above it. By analyzing pottery from well-stratified sites, excavators are able to create what they call a relative chronology. But this chronology is floating in time without any fixed dates. To anchor this chronology, William Foxwell Albright, considered the father of biblical archaeology, used events mentioned in both the Bible and Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts to assign dates to pottery styles. Albright's chronology, slightly modified, is what Mazar uses to date her massive building, and what most archaeologists use today.
What we found is a typical 10th century pottery, meaning bowls with hand burnish. You can see from inside, together with an import, a beautiful black on red juglet. What is so important that this is a 10th century typical juglet.
So has Mazar discovered the Palace of David? She adds up the evidence. The building is huge. It is located in a prominent place in the oldest part of Jerusalem. And the pottery, according to Albright's chronology, dates to the 10th century BC, the time of David. Mazar believes she has indeed found the Palace of David. But that evidence, and indeed the kingdom itself, rest on the dates associated with fragments of pottery. And some critics argue the system for dating that pottery relies too heavily on the Bible.
Archaeologists in the past did not rely too heavily on the Bible. They relied only on the Bible. We have a problem in dating. How do you date in archaeology? You need an anchor from outside.
Today, there is a more scientific method to anchor pottery to firm dates: radiocarbon dating. It is a specialty of Elisabetta Boretto of the Weizmann Institute.
The first step is, of course, in the field, which relates the sample, the material like olive pits or seeds or charcoal, to the archaeological context.
If an olive seed is found at the same layer as a piece of pottery, the carbon in the seed can be used to date the pottery. When the seed dies, its radioactive carbon-14 decays at a consistent rate over time. By measuring the ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12, Boretto can determine the age of the olive seed, which in turn can be used to date the pottery. Boretto has meticulously collected and analyzed hundreds of samples from over 20 sites throughout Israel. Her carbon samples date the pottery that Albright and most archaeologists associate with the time of David and Solomon to around 75 years later. For events so long ago, this may seem like a trivial difference. But if Boretto is right, Mazar's Palace of David and Tappy's ancient Hebrew alphabet have to be redated. This places them in the time of the lesser-known kings Omri,